And up next is the code. So this one should be a lot longer. I'll just take you through pretty much how I set it up. We'll start with, I create all the shaders and set the information necessary. So the shader, the texture light, which is I think the only, like really the only active one I used. I think I used two other shaders, but very minimally. Color light, shader texture light, and then shader texture. Shader texture is the sun. Shader texture light is almost everything, and then shader color light was the lamp. And I think that's the only thing that used the shader color light. No, I think that's wrong too. I don't know. Then after that, I set up the skybox, which was just whatever texture I could find online. And this is a local object or a class object because it has to be rendered a little bit differently than everyone else. Same with the sphere, which is the sun, and then the terrain is also separate. So these three are done differently than the rest of them. The way I set up most game objects, or I guess graphic objects, is I stored them in this this vector. Same with color light, and I did that was for scalability, so I didn't have to constantly create new objects in the H every single time I wanted to make something new. And then it also made me, it forced me to always delete the object because at the end of the destructor, all of these get deleted. So they cannot be rendered unless they're in this vector, which also was just an intelligent way to make sure that it's always deleted as well at the end of the game. So I have actually three functions. Set up the cabin stuff. The cabin stuff is just stuff that isn't the desk and the desk area. So the cabin, the hatchet, and the corner pyramid dude. With each model and texture I create, I do a similar thing to what I did here. I store them in here. This isn't necessary, like in terms of the function of the demo, but I do this for cleanup because, again, I don't want to make 100 different textures in the .h. Instead, I just have a vector that is deleted at the end of the thing. Same with models that I use. And then with like I said, if I want something to render, I have to put them into this texture light, and then they get deleted at the end. So I set up all that information. As expected, all this is the information necessary for them, and then we go to desk stuff. So this is the stuff that was in the proximity of the desk, so the chair, the desk itself, the like quote-unquote laptop thing, the phone, and the lamp, and then all of those do the similar thing. They just, as I said, and then I have trees. So trees I do a little bit differently. So if you saw in the .h, I actually have a list of tree and list of stumps, and then I have tree stump as texture lights. So instead of making 5 trees and 3 stumps in the .h or putting them into this texture light and color light vector, I instead made one of each and then had a matrix of all the positions I want the trees and stumps to be located. That way I would reuse, there wouldn't be a waste, like I wouldn't have like 8 extra of these. And that way in the draw scene, I only have to set the world and render it similar to how we did it in we did the visualizer in Engine. So it's a reuse. I reused same models, same textures. So I only had one of each, so it's a little more efficient that way. And then I just set the world and all that important stuff. So that was just the trees and such. Next is the draw. So as you wanted a minimized draw and a minimalized init. So in the init, as you saw, was all the setup. And in the draw, it's just setting the light information and then just rendering every single one of them. So this is going through all the texture lights that wanted to be rendered and rendering them. This is getting all the trees and then setting the world and then rendering it, all the stumps, and then shader texture. And then I would set to context all the shaders necessary before I render them, and then render them. So shader texture, the skybox, and the sun both have textures but don't interact with light, so they don't do that. And then I believe that is it, and then at the end I go through and delete everything. So this is how I did my model. You want to see as well all of my classes. So nothing. Let's start with model class. I don't think there's much to show you. So the model class is as expected. And then I'll take you to the sphere, which shout out to the Unity forums or something that essentially gave me all the code for how to develop this, because I had no idea how to do the sphere beforehand. But it was very useful. So that's my sphere. Here is my unit pyramid. Here is my unit box. I don't think I used that in my demo. And those are my those are my pre-made models. It's my terrain class, trained model, does as you'd expect. So it goes through. I don't know if I showed you this in the past, but it goes through, and now it reuses vertices. Before I didn't reuse vertices. I had everyone individual vertices, but now I got it to work. This was like 3 weeks ago, but I don't know if I ever showed you. Shader classes and associated HSL shaders. So shader texture light. I'll just show you shader texture light because that's like essentially the only thing that makes it. So I have the spotlight information. So a switch statement. I don't know if there's a better way to do this, but it just asks for the light number, as is done here. So light number, and then changes associately. It's associate whatever. And then oh yeah, I showed you the fog actually. You saw that. So texture light. This is really the only new code for the adding the fog that I know of, at least. And then I just made a constant buffer up here somewhere, right, which is sending the shader information done here. So that is the associated shaders. I guess I won't show you the other ones because they're all just the same. Graphic objects associated with the shaders, so I'll show you. There's a lot of S's, I'm sorry. Graphic object texture light. This is very simple. Nothing really new. I didn't use meshes in this. I never had a reason to because all of my models didn't have meshes. So I didn't import the mesh one from before. It doesn't say, your grading doesn't say it's required, so I didn't bother. But yeah, all of my textures kind of sucked, so all of my models kind of sucked, so there wasn't any specific meshes. I didn't do mirror, and then DX app changes. You wanted everything to be clean and streamlined, and that is what it was. So that should be it for this. I believe that is the end for this just assignment, and that is my final.